All night long, Emma cried out for aid, her voice fading into stillness as a deadly snowstorm ensnared 7 precious lives on an icy roadway. The paths were completely blocked, and rescue teams had retreated. Hope was slipping away fast. Then through the crackling interference, a solitary driver responded. Armed with only chains, sheer bravery, and an aging truck, he plunged into the blinding whiteout. What followed was a daring salvation so bold, it would leave an entire community utterly speechless, and 2 strangers forever transformed. Please press like and share your location in the comments below. Your encouragement fuels more incredible heartfelt tales. Now let's dive into the story. The gale roared like a sentient beast outside the tiny emergency dispatch hub. Snow lashed the window panes in fierce, relentless gusts, blanketing the glass in thick white layers, then wiping them clean under the wavering porch lamp's glow. Inside, Emma Larson sat hunched over her radio panel, her hands trembling from sheer exhaustion, not the biting chill. Though the frost was creeping in too. It was 2:03 a.m., and she hadn't rested in over 20 long hours. Draped in a worn navy fleece jacket, she adjusted the microphone close to her lips and pressed the transmit key once more. Her voice, raw and fraying at the edges, pierced through the static. Any rigs picking up this signal? Urgent rescue is needed off Highway 19. Is anyone out there listening? Only crackles answered her plea. Emma eased back, rubbing her weary temples. 5 grueling hours. That's how long she'd been trying. Road crews had withdrawn just before the stroke of midnight. The whiteout had completely engulfed the paths, and visibility was down to less than 10 feet. Even snowmobiles couldn't breach the ferocious ridge gales. And still, 17 miles out in a stalled shuttle van were 7 desperate people, 2 utility workers, 3 migrant orchard laborers, an elderly man with serious cardiac issues, and a diabetic girl no older than 10 years. The group was en route to a safe refuge when their motor froze solid and all contact was lost. They sent one brief distress signal, then nothing but silence. Emma had tried everything, contacted county officials, the National Guard, volunteer rescue teams. Every response was the same. We cannot reach them in this brutal tempest. So she stayed broadcasting tirelessly. A thunderous gust rattled the walls. The lights flickered ominously. The backup lantern hummed faintly in the corner. Her fingertips were numb, but she pressed the mic again. Please, this is Emma Larson, Emergency Post 8. There are people stranded out there. If any rigs are on CB, I need you now. Static. She shut her eyes tightly. Her chest rose and fell in a slow, weary cadence. Her thumb slipped off the transmit key, and then a crackle, a burst. Then a deep, steady voice broke through. Copy that, dispatch. This is Steelhawk. Where exactly are they stuck? Emma jolted upright, her breath caught in her throat. She hit the key again. Who is this? I'm Ethan, a freelance hauler, off duty, but I'm 12 miles south. Got chains, warmth in the cab. A pause. Are you certain about this? She asked, her voice trembling. I was military before trucking. Tell me their exact location. I've faced far worse. And just like that, a flicker of hope slipped back into the room. The name Steelhawk resonated in Emma's headset like a tale from a long-forgotten saga. For a moment, she stared at the radio, utterly stunned, then scrambled for her logbook and pen, spilling a cold coffee mug in her haste. Her fingers, stiff from the bitter chill, jotted down the coordinates as she replied. They're stranded 17 miles up Highway 19, just beyond mile marker 117. The shuttle's off the road, likely stuck in a ditch. Their last signal came from a cell tower before it went dead. That was 5 hours ago. Ethan's voice returned, calm yet resolute. Copy that. I'm heading northbound now. The snow's incredibly dense. Tell them I'm coming. Emma leaned forward, her heart pounding. They can't hear you. Their comms died hours ago. You'll be driving completely blind. A pause. I've navigated worse in Kandahar, he replied firmly. Keep this channel open for me. And with that, his voice faded, but he was now charging straight into the storm's fierce heart. Emma sat motionless, awed by how swiftly hope had returned. She'd braced herself to fail tonight, to make those dreaded calls to families, to endure the post-incident reports. But now, a driver named Ethan was out there battling towering snowdrifts in an 18-wheeler for complete strangers. The minutes dragged on painfully. Ethan checked in sporadically, brief bursts through static, passing mile marker 103, drifting heavily in the snow. Then 10 minutes later, the roads completely vanished, guiding by instinct and faith alone now. Emma responded, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. "You've got this, Ethan. Keep talking to me." She tracked his progress by memory, noting his position on a laminated map with care. Snow pounded the dispatch roof like a relentless drum, and the wind wailed as if nature itself sought to erase the world outside. At 3:36 a.m., Ethan's voice returned, strained with effort. "I think I see the van ahead." A pause, then silence. Emma stared at the radio, her hand hovering over the key. Nothing, no static. Just a chilling void. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Do you copy?" Nothing. She stood, toppling her chair backward. "Ethan, this is Dispatch 8. Are you there?" Her heart raced wildly. Seconds stretched into agonizing hours. Then through faint, crackling static, a voice nearly lost to the howling wind. "Shuttle found. Windows are completely frosted. Engines frozen solid. I'm checking the kid first." She sank back into her seat, a single sob escaping her lips. "He found them. He truly found them." The radio hissed with intermittent static, then fell silent again. Emma gripped the table's edge tightly, her eyes locked on the blinking signal light that once carried Ethan's voice. Minutes passed without a single word. She pictured the scene. A massive truck idling beside a snowbound van, the wind shrieking between them. Ethan, frostbitten and weary, prying open frozen doors, carrying people out one by one. Heat from his rig barely staving off the bitter cold. It was raw heroism unfolding live, and she could only listen, helpless. At 3:52 a.m., the radio crackled again. "The kid's in the cab now. Her sugar's low but stable. Found a snack bar in my glove box. Starting on the others now?" Emma exhaled, relief washing over her like a wave. "The girl. He saved the girl first." "Understood. That was the right call," she replied softly, her voice thick with emotion. "How many can fit in your sleeper cab?" Ethan coughed, the sound of snow crunching and doors slamming in the background. "It's tight, but I'll make it work. 2 in the bunk, 1 up front, maybe 3 across the floor. I've hauled worse loads than this." His voice was rough, exhaustion seeping through every word. The old man's conscious but disoriented. "I've got pulses on everyone. Warming them up now." Emma scribbled updates in her logbook, hardly believing this was real. One man, one truck in a storm fierce enough to halt the entire county. Yet he was pulling 7 precious lives from its merciless grasp. "Ethan, you're not just a driver right now. You're their entire lifeline." A pause, then quietly, "I'm just repaying what someone once did for me." She blinked, struck by the raw emotion in his voice, but there was no time to ask what he meant. A new sound came through, the truck's engine straining against the heavy snow. Turning back now. "It's going to be slow. The roads are completely gone. I'm following fence lines and sheer luck." Emma stood, leaning toward the speaker as if she could send strength through the airwaves. "You're not alone out there, Steelhawk. I'm with you every single step." Outside, dawn was still hours away, and the snow raged on relentlessly. But somewhere between the frozen void and Dispatch 8's blinking lights, a convoy of valor was in motion. 1 man, 7 souls, and a truck carving its path back to life itself. The storm refused to relent one bit. Snow fell sideways, thick as a woolen blanket, slamming into Ethan's windshield, blurring the world in smudges of grey and white. The heater in his rig roared at full capacity, struggling to keep up. Every few minutes, he wiped the glass with a gloved hand, fighting to maintain some semblance of visibility. Emma's voice crackled in the cab again. "Talk to me, Ethan. Where are you now?" He cleared his throat, lips chapped and dry. 5 miles in, crawling at maybe 10 miles an hour. Drifts have buried the fence line completely. I'm using tree outlines and memory to guide me now. In the back, the passengers were crammed tightly into the sleeper cab. The girl, now wrapped in Ethan's thick wool blanket, had stabilized, her cheeks regaining a faint pink from the warmth. The elderly man was barely conscious, but breathing steadily. The others sat silently, hands clasped tightly, murmuring soft prayers into the darkness. Emma's voice came through gently. "You're doing incredible work. Radar shows stronger gusts near Cridge Pass. Can you find a detour?" Ethan gritted his teeth. "I tried. There's no way through. I'm sticking to the west field, praying those fences hold up." A pause, filled only by the low rumble of tires battling the snow and the squeak of metal under immense strain. "Tell me a story, Emma, something to keep my grip steady." She blinked, the simple request striking her deeply. "All right," she said softly, settling into her creaky chair. "When I was 13, my dad got trapped in a blizzard near Ogallala. He hauled cattle for a living. The CB was out, roads completely shut. Everyone feared the absolute worst." Ethan listened in silence, navigating as she spoke. He trekked 20 miles to a ranger post, came back frostbitten, limping badly, but he never once grumbled. He said, "When you're someone's only hope, you keep going no matter what. That's why I became a dispatcher, to pay that courage forward someday." A long pause followed. Then Ethan replied, "I like that story. It makes this storm feel a little less daunting." The next hour passed in tense, heavy silence, broken only by Emma's periodic check-ins and Ethan's gruff confirmations. The truck inched forward, its lights dimmed by layers of ice. Emma marked his progress on the map, her fingers trembling slightly. At 6:07 a.m., a sudden burst of static hit the speakers. "I see the lights. Dispatch center on the ridge ahead. We're almost there." Emma stood, her heart pounding fiercely. Then they arrived. At 6:12 a.m., the first faint orange glow of dawn pierced through the storm, barely cutting through the heavy grey sky. The dispatch hub's exterior lights flickered through the blowing snow as the semi rolled slowly into the lot, its engine groaning, tires dragging heavy heaps of slush behind them. Steam hissed from the exhaust as the rig finally halted, brakes squealing and freezing in place. Emma was already outside, her coat flapping wildly in the wind, boots crunching through the deep snow. The truck's cab door swung open with great effort. Ethan stepped down, completely covered in ice, his beard rimmed with frost, his flannel jacket utterly soaked. He stumbled slightly, catching himself against the doorframe. He looked beyond weary, utterly drained, but stood tall, alive. Then the sleeper door opened. The little girl emerged first, wrapped tightly in his wool blanket, her cheeks flushed, her eyes wide with wonder. She climbed down slowly with his help, then ran to Emma, throwing her arms around her waist in a tight embrace. Behind her came the others, the quiet workers, the elderly man supported under his arms, each blinking in the harsh, biting wind, pale but breathing. Not a single one was missing. Ethan watched them all descend, then stepped back and leaned against his truck, barely holding himself upright. Emma crossed to him, utterly speechless. She had spoken to him for hours, heard his breath falter, listened as he fought nature itself with nothing but sheer will. But now, in front of her, he was real, taller than she'd imagined, his face worn but resolute. They locked eyes, snow swirling between them. No grand words, no speeches, just a quiet nod of mutual respect, of something deeper than strangers could share. She finally spoke, her voice thick with raw emotion. "You brought them all home." Ethan gave a weary smile, small but deeply sincere. "They didn't belong to the storm's cruel grasp." Emergency crews arrived mere minutes later. Medical teams rushed in with stretchers, warm blankets and IVs. Emma directed them quietly, her headset forgotten on the console inside. Ethan sat on the back step of his rig, sipping a hot drink someone had handed him, his boots steaming in the cold. A paramedic asked if he wanted to ride to the hospital. He shook his head slowly. "I'll rest here for a minute." Emma sat beside him. They watched the blizzard slowly fade. Behind them, the blinking dispatch hub stood firm and unyielding. In front, the road, now gradually clearing, waited patiently for its next call. But for a few long, sacred moments, nothing stirred. The town, the storm, the chaos, all paused to honor what had just unfolded before them.